Wow, it's been a while since I've done one of these. Well, I think it's finally time I sat down and fleshed out the details of Ganondorf from Tears of the Kingdom. Let's see if he really is the abhorrent monster he appears to be, or if there could be something actually good about the actions he takes. A lot of people in the community have written him off as completely one-dimensional and generically evil. And trust me, I see where they are coming from. However, I think that there are some hidden details under the surface that could provide some context as to his behavior. Still, even in the best of light, I'm not sure that would save him. Kick back and relax while I walk you through it. This is Judgment Time. Part 1. Ganondorf's Backstory. One of the biggest criticisms of Tears of the Kingdom is simply that there is little to no backstory about our villain. There are some pieces to it we can pick up on, and if you are attentive, you can see a few key ideas emerge within them. We know that he is the king of the Gerudo, and that a male is born into the tribe once every 100 years. At least they were back then. It is entirely possible that in the present, that process doesn't happen because he was sealed under the castle. It is an interesting concept, but not really the topic for today. His appearance is off for a Gerudo as well, specifically as he has a grayish skin tone to him. This trait is carried by the two women who accompany him, this continuity's version of Kotake and Kome. We also see that there is a band of Gerudo warriors under him, who look distinctly more fierce than the Gerudo of the present or that of the ancient sage. In the throne room, Rauru expresses that he has sent multiple invitations to the Gerudo to join the peaceful union of the new kingdom. This is the single largest piece of motivation we can see for Ganondorf, that he actively rejects peace. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that he wants to rule everything. I don't think his motivation here is to take Rauru's kingdom and replace it with his own. That would be far too simple and doesn't track with his other behaviors. I'm getting ahead of myself though. Let's look at something else about him that speaks to his backstory, something that is largely overlooked. Ganondorf is a weapon master. We can see his mastery over the sword, the club, the spear, and the bow. In many ways, he is similar to our charming main character. We also see that he, even in his base form, has some power of darkness in him. The puppet Zelda shown in the memories and talked about in the tablets is clearly a manifestation of darkness he has created. Alternatively, it might be him masquerading as Zelda in disguise. We can't be sure there. I mean, look at this guy. Considering his background with the Gerudo, I'm sure he could pull off a convincing Zelda if he wanted to. My point being, we can see that he has darkness in him, can manifest it, and, most telling of all, can seemingly use gloom weapons without them harming him. So we have an exceptionally skilled warrior with strong elemental powers at his disposal. He actively rejects peace, and when faced with a problem he cannot overcome with might, resorts to deception, murder, and theft. It would seem that whatever he was taught in his youth, that these traits were, at a minimum, not discouraged. Perhaps they were even encouraged. That is unfortunately all we know about his backstory, so let's move on to his intentions. Part 2. Ganondorf's Intentions. This is where things get more interesting and a little more speculative. His words to Rauru imply he does not approve of what Rauru has been using his godlike powers for. On the surface, it might seem that this is about Rauru creating a peaceful kingdom, but I think that there is something deeper here. First, we have to ask what Rauru is doing and why Ganondorf would disagree with it. We know that Rauru and Sonia traveled around the kingdom and used their powers to trap and imprison evil within their shrines of light. Those actions prevented the monsters from returning to life after being killed, and so the world became a much safer place. In short, Rauru was disrupting the natural order of the world to make a better world that wasn't ruled by the constant base need of survival. This is what Ganondorf is opposed to. He is a trained warrior who relishes combat, the thrill of battle. We later see that the mere idea of a powerful warrior, a rival rising up to threaten him, excites him even in defeat. We also see the utter disappointment when he confronts that hero, and how easily his weapon breaks under the might of Ganondorf's enhanced power. After Ganondorf kills Sonia and takes her stone, he uses his enhanced powers of darkness and immediately summons forth monsters to flood the kingdom. If we observe these monsters, we can see that they are stretching and yawning as though they have just awoken from slumber. It would seem that with his enhanced powers, he is able to undo some of the binding of the Shrines of Light. We don't exactly know how that sealing happened, but it would seem that the base evil is sealed within the shrine itself, and in the process of purification, a mystic spiral forms and releases that power into the environment. As such, whatever effect allowed the monsters to return to life seems to be hampered by this absorption and conversion of darkness. When Ganondorf does this effect, it would seem that he is empowering that darkness so it can once again manifest as monsters. It is unclear if the Blood Moon predates Ganondorf, or if it too was some ancient darkness that may have gone away with the various shrines around the kingdom. What is clear is that with its return, there was a huge shift in power, and thus Rauru's peace was in danger. Over an uncertain amount of time, we learned that Ganondorf's forces swept over the land. He even turned on the Gerudo, or perhaps they turned on him in favor of a new leader. We simply don't know. It is possible that whatever darkness awoke in him made him so bloodthirsty that he desired nothing short of wiping out everything. His final line before consuming his secret stone is that he wishes to cast the world into eternal night. Ganondorf's goals are not conquest. It is rooted in a belief about a natural order, a world of the survival of the fittest. He thinks that the weak should perish before the might of their betters, and absolutely believes that Rauru and Sonia are creating a world where the weak thrive. This firmly puts him in the camp of social Darwinism. If you are unfamiliar with that phrase, it means that they view the values of survival of the fittest and might makes right as the natural and correct order of the world. Here is a quote from TV Tropes about it. To the social Darwinist, all life is a struggle for survival in which the strongest naturally prosper at the expense of the weak, and it is right and natural that they should do so, because that is just the way things are, and natural law is above good and evil. Diving a little deeper into this bloopy hole, we can see that he falls under the subset of the struggler. TV Tropes describes that as, the struggler believes that competition, suffering, and struggle makes the individual, and possibly society as a whole, superior. They tend to believe in evil virtues like cunning, ruthlessness, opportunism, and the ability to endure and survive by any means necessary, and tend to have a cynical view of the world as a hard, harsh place. I need to be clear that while I do not agree with Ganondorf's views, it is not necessarily a wrong view. It is a balance, a primal existence and one that is natural. Ecosystems grow and thrive off this type of struggle. I doubt that Ganondorf's desire are anything remotely as lofty as trying to, say, liberate the poor oppressed bokoblins. He certainly may think that suppressing the monster's natural process of resurrection is Rauru abusing the divine power of his people. As such, Ganondorf's goals seem merely to equalize that and return the world to a base savage state, a world where a person's might and prowess are recognized, rewarded, and thrive. Part 3. Present-day Crimes. When Ganondorf revives in the present, his tactics and goals seem to change. He now remains in Gloom's lair, accumulating power while spreading his gloom. He also sends forth his puppet to do his bidding, to manipulate and scheme while tricking his foes into self-destruction. It would seem that Ganondorf no longer is set on merely restoring the natural order of the world, but instead, he seems to want to eradicate what has grown from the kingdom Rauru built. While his goals behind the original phenomenon are in part to protect the secret stones and prevent others from rising to challenge him, his other goals are far more insidious. In the desert, he simply seems to want to wipe out the Gerudo, by trapping and overwhelming them with Gyptos. For the Rito, he gives them an eternal winter so they will starve. He is actively corrupting the Gorons, and perhaps even intending to turn them into savage monsters. He pollutes Zora's domain, and even worse, is tainting the water source for the majority of Hyrule with toxic sludge. Attacking the Koroks is interesting, as his motivation may be rooted in again eliminating a potential threat, the Great Deku Tree. If he is growing a massive gloom tree under the castle, then taking out the Deku Tree would fall in line with his general motives of disarming his foes. Let's assume for a moment that all of his plans worked out for him. Let's figure out a worst case scenario of what he is trying to do. His actions would basically kill off all Zora in Hyrule, and perhaps force the survivors to flee to domains outside of the land. The Koroks in the kingdom would likely die, but they may migrate away. The Rito would have a similar fate. They would have to abandon their home for someplace beyond the kingdom. The Gorons seem to really only exist in Hyrule, though there might be settlements beyond the chasm to the north. Either way, the ones in Hyrule seem locked in and couldn't easily escape, thus likely turning into rock monsters under Ganondorf's control. Then there are the Gerudo, who are basically landlocked in the desert, though perhaps they could take on a seafaring life further south. I feel as though Ganondorf's motives have changed from the past to the present. In the past, his goals may have been simply to return Hyrule to a more savage and natural state. Perhaps fueled by revenge for being locked away and forgotten, he now seems to want to completely wipe out the kingdom that stood in his way. The only ones who might be spared in this are the Yiga. Perhaps they would inherit the monster-filled land of Hyrule. Who knows? Perhaps he would use their ingenuity to continue to the lands beyond. Regardless of his intent with the Yiga and the land of Hyrule, his behavior in the present is obvious. He is willing, eager even, to engage in as much murder and even genocide as needed to destroy what Rauru has built. While he might have once had a more lofty goal of making a world of freedom for the strong, his intentions have clearly shifted to the bloody eradication of those who stand in his way, a grudge likely fueled by being locked away and forgotten. Part 4. The Verdict. This one isn't even close. Ganondorf's goals are little more than evil, filled with malice and hatred for those who bested him, trapped him, and tried to erase him from history. At best, his goals were to return the world to a state in which the strong thrived at the expense of the weak. I want to make it clear that might makes right isn't explicitly evil. The world is more complicated than that. Why, even our modern world, such ideals exist in the way finances, and those who have the wealth effectively force their ideals on the impoverished. Is this good, evil, or neither? That is up to whoever you ask. My point being, wanting to change the world with your power is a tricky subject to assign moral judgment to. Perhaps I should drag Rauru, the Zonai one this time, onto my little program and ask if enforcing his views on the monster population is morally objectionable. What is clear though is that when Ganondorf was beaten, locked away, and revived, he seemingly moved from restoring the primal balance to wiping everything out that opposed him. Even before he woke, his resentment and desire to destroy manifested as the calamity, and so I doubt he was truly doing this for the sake of a greater good. Ultimately, I have concluded, probably to no surprise of anybody watching, that Ganondorf from Tears of the Kingdom is irredeemable. Thank you for watching. Well, that was an interesting one. I don't think many people have taken a serious look at Ganondorf's motives and tried to assess if there is actual merit to what he is doing. For better or worse, the story paints him as pretty generically evil, but I wanted to see if there was more to it. What do you guys think? Is there more to him than a man simply wanting to wipe out all the good in Hyrule? Leave a comment and I will respond. As of the writing of this video, I'm still playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but I'm thinking I want to do some Judgment Time episodes on the villains from that series. I find them fascinating. Well, maybe not Palmer, he's terrible. Let me know if that is something you guys would like to see. This channel needs to branch out from Zelda. It simply hasn't been doing well the last couple of months. Speaking of which, I really need to thank my channel supporters as they are the ones who have been keeping this boat going. Without their support, I wouldn't be able to keep this up. And so thank you guys for helping me out. On that note, let me welcome my most recent champion, Christina Oltatore. Thank you so much for your support, it is gravely needed right now. If you would like to join the crew, joining here on YouTube as a channel member would be great, but you can also sign up on my Patreon. Doing either will give you access to my Discord, where we can talk more directly about various topics, be it from Zelda, the Final Fantasy, the Pokemon, whatever. If you like my work, please join. Times are rough for me right now. That's all I have for you today, guys. Be safe, and may the way of the hero lead to the Triforce.